few of the things you wanted to talk about were human nature, addiction, and recovery. So my question was how does human nature, addiction, and recovery, why is it so relevant to you? Oh, yeah, why is it so relevant to you?
Well, a little bit of background on me. I was an addict for many, many years. And I am recovered now. I say recovered because I don't refer to myself as an addict anymore. Even though relapse is possible for anybody, I don't like to define myself. And as an addiction counselor, I encourage my clients not to define themselves by their past and their mistakes that they've made.
Yeah, anybody should do that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, ask somebody.
Well, yeah,
to say
absolutely.
three good things about themselves, and they'll struggle to do it. But ask them to say three bad things about themselves, they'll blip it right off the bat.
One great thing, I don't know who said it or where it came from, but it was you could be having a great day. You could be having a great day, but someone may make one tiny negative comment about you, and it'll be the one thing that sticks in your mind for the rest of the day.
Right.
Kind of like that. So I know what you mean.
I mean, a lot of people are influenced by what people say about them, but even more important is what you say about yourself. And if you define yourself as an addict, I know when you go to self-help groups like AA and NA, they have a saying, once an addict, always an addict. And in a sense, that's true, because once you become addicted to drugs, changes take place in the brain that it could be years later. If you start using those drugs again, you're going to be hopelessly addicted again. That's what they're referring to. But it doesn't mean you have to live that way, nor define yourself as one.
What is NA? I know AA.
Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't like hearing that. But it is true. Once you've been addicted to something, you could be years later, you start using that substance again, you're going to be dependent on that substance again, just because your brain chemistry. But that doesn't mean you have to live that way. And it certainly doesn't mean you have to define yourself that way.
Right. So, so how did you end up becoming a drug? What was the thing you said?
A drug and alcohol counselor?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
Well, I didn't ever have the illusion I was going to run out and save the world, but I realized I had a lot of experience on the subject, being an addict myself, and I learned how to overcome that and unlock my potential. The saddest thing about addiction is it hurts families. People do die and stuff like that. But another thing people overlook is that it robs people of their potential. I hear people.
I never thought of it like that way. You laugh. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hear people in my practice telling me all the time that oh yeah, I'm a functional addict or a functional alcoholic. And I'm saying, okay, well, you survived in spite of yourself. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, how much more can you do if you didn't have that monkey on your back?
What do you mean? How much more could you do?
How much more could you achieve?
Oh, and I see.
When you define yourself as an addict and stuff like that, you're limiting your potential. I learned the secret of unlocking my potential, and I want to share that with other people to help them overcome what they're going through. And hopefully, have better quality of life. I don't really measure success in recovery by years sober or years without using a drug, which is certainly part of it. But the way I measure success in recovery is quality of life. How are you living?
Right. Yeah. No, that's brilliant, because most people that I hear all the time. I'm pretty sure you do. Like, I've been however many days, years, months sober, but it's something dumb. But like, you would think about your quality of life, but I
Yeah.
don't know. It didn't even come to my mind for some reason.
Yeah, in addiction, we set up these comfort zones. We use this drug to numb us or alcohol to numb us, but addiction is not limited to drugs and alcohol.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know,
yeah, video games.
Yeah, it could
food.
be endlessly checking your cell phone.
Yep. Yeah, I know.
We as humans bond to something, you know, but like there's a lot of people that we call alcoholics, addicts, and para-alcoholics and para-addicts. Para-alcoholism is like never taking a drink in your life, but still having the same behaviors. And you learn that through your life experience.
What do you mean having the same behaviors? Explain what you mean, because I think I get it, but I want to be sure.
Codependency, depending on other people's needs, caretaking behaviors, obsessive behaviors, you know.
I see what you mean.
Some people call that like addictive personalities without even taking a drug. You know,
interesting.
They're behaving like an addict without even taking a drug.
It's funny, a bunch of the things, connecting a bunch of things in my head, like that I've heard from the past, like regarding so-called addictive personalities. I know what you mean.
Right.
So
right.
So one of the things we want to talk about was a social disconnection. And what do you mean by that?
Right. Okay. First off, let's talk a little bit about human nature.
All right. Yeah.
Human beings are social creatures. Doesn't matter how tough you think you are, how many tattoos you got, how many people you killed with one bullet. All human beings have the need to bond to other people.
Yeah, that's primal too, right? It goes back to our ancestors, basically.
Absolutely. And it's like human nature is like, if you're not in a healthy environment, you're not able to bond to healthy things, you will bond to something.
Right.
Unhealthy things. It could be a drug. It could be a behavior. It could be pornography. It could be sex. Could be gambling. Could be some compulsive behavior. Anything that becomes obsessive or interrupts your life. Human beings will bond to something. And it's our human nature to bond to other people. When we create healthy bonds, we're healthy people, and we don't need outside substances to make us feel better.
Right. I mean, I imagine in the world that we live in right now, it's like, especially right now with I'll just say COVID, like like I can imagine how disconnected from everybody we are. I mean, it's like we're literally being conditioned to be disconnected from people right now.
Well, that COVID was that was just like the stroke that killed it all off, you know. We've been disconnecting little by little for a long time.
Yeah.
For example, since the 1950s, the number of steady friend or close friends that a person has been steadily declining. It used to be 5, now it's about 1 or 2.
Makes sense. Right? In the world we live in.
A lot of people don't even know the name of their next door neighbors.
I know.
Well, they just moved in, so.
Well, I was talking to him the other day, actually, last week, but still, even then, I don't know. When
I grew up in the 70s, we knew everybody on the street. We knew too much about each other, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I suppose that there was a much more of a sense of community. Even when I was a kid, I was at like late 90s, early 2000s. Right. There was still that, like, I know what you mean. Like, I could still name our neighbors. Like, yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
And now it's, I don't know. I just like, we took like a leap, I don't know, not forward, but backwards when it comes to being connected with each other. Right. Or just people in general.
Yeah. And in other ways too, these things here are electronics and stuff like that. They're supposed to connect us, they're actually distancing us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You ever get a text from somebody from a different room in your own house?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, to get people to respond yes or no to a simple question is almost impossible. The
Yeah,
person who invented the telephone would probably look at humanity now and probably just be like,
I didn't intend this.
yeah, like whatsoever. Because when he what was his name? Bell, last name Bell. I
Yeah,
can't. Yeah.
Alexander Graham
Okay,
Bell.
it was him. Yeah, yeah. So I always think
Yeah,
back to that. Like he invented this great thing, and then you look at us now. We can't even respond a simple word back to one another through email, text, even phone.
right.
It's crazy, and I follow
Right.
you. I
And
follow you.
but human beings need that face-to-face
Yeah,
conversation. I remember during COVID when I would do a one-on-one interview with the client before COVID, you have that facial contact, you see the face-to-face contact. We rely on nonverbal communication, like body
yeah.
language, facial expressions, and it's easy to keep a conversation going. During COVID, we did them over the telephone, and I found it really hard to conduct an interview past 5 minutes.
I can only
Um,
imagine,
yeah,
especially for something like that. Yeah.
yeah, and like when you send a text, we got all these acronyms: laugh out loud, LMAF, or whatever those and stuff like that. That's Orwellian.
Yeah, the funny thing, I was thinking about that yesterday actually about like how people I don't know if I want to say people are getting dumber, but it's like words have been shortened. Like people don't really spell out I mean, your typical texter, how they want to some people want to spell WHAT, they'll spell WOT or WAT.
Right,
Just an example. Yeah, all the acronyms, and it's
right.
gotten worse, like most definitely. Like it's a trendy thing to not say or spell out your words.
Our our technology is a great thing to connect yourself with people at great distances away, like Skype and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's a flip side to it too. We're very disconnected and we depend too much on it. I mean, I hate to say it, but like if I left the house going to work one day and realized I left my cell phone at home and turned around to go back to get it because I can't get through my day without it at my job.
Yeah, well,
So we do stay connected in a way, but as human beings emotionally, we need that face-to-face contact. It's our
yeah,
human nature.
yeah. I mean, at the same time,
Um,
that's also why the telephone was made so that we could be connected for situations like that,
right.
but not for the things that it's being used, or at least, I don't want to say put upon us. I don't know. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
Our phones are most definitely play a role. I mean, but there's so many other things that play a role into us being disconnected with one another,
Oh yeah.
other than just our phones. It's It's crazy, crazy time to live in. I can only imagine what the future is gonna be like.
Yeah. That's the thought. We live like robots. We need to live the way we're intended to live, and have that face-to-face connection with create healthy bonds, face-to-face bonds with people around us. See, um, other ways we disconnected is like since the over the past few decades, the amount of floor space in people's houses has steadily increased,
Uh-huh.
and the
Mhm.
backyard space has gotten smaller.
Yeah, I don't get why people want to buy those houses, to be honest with you. These houses, like, at one time I went to a party, I don't know how many years ago, but they're having a party and like the people next door could see everybody, doing everything. I was like, this is really
Right,
awkward, you
right.
know?
It's the status quo. The bigger the house, the more
Yeah,
you're doing.
it's it's
I
it's
like our crowded little house that we have.
it's a decent, yeah, it's an all right house. Yeah.
I enjoy our happy mess that we have.
Yeah, no, it's a lot better than I don't know. People want these tiny, I mean, these big houses with like no like front or side or backyard. To me, it's just going backwards. Like I because people want them
Yeah,
and they're willing to pay a retarded price to buy them too. And it's just like
right.
I don't know, but I guess either a person is desperate to buy a house or it just goes to show
Well,
something about
it's the
just
American dream. It's the
to own a
American
house.
dream, but like we're getting more and more Americans, so they're shoving all these houses close together. But
Yeah.
even then though, it's there's we've been become disconnected as a society. When we become disconnected as human beings from healthy things around us, healthy people, healthy activity, we will bond to something. It's human nature.
Right.
So a lot of people bond to drugs, alcohol. A lot of people bond to other unhealthy things, you know. I guess when to compare the two, I think it would be a little bit healthier to go out and binge drink some Budweiser as to sit home and binge watch Netflix.
Yeah.
Because of the disconnection.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
yeah, you're right. Actually, that's a very good point.
but that being said, though, binge drinking is not healthy anyways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to addiction, um there's classic theories to or disease or models for addiction. There's the traditional theory that it's a choice, that you choose to use that drug, that alcohol. You can choose not to do it too. Okay.
Right.
And a good example of that, I mean, when I was in school, they taught us all the theories. And, you know, nowadays we're so polarized. One has to be right. This one's wrong. This one's wrong. This one's right. But in my practice, I've seen evidence of all of them. Why can't it be all of them? Why can't it be a choice that leads to a disease?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of just like everything. Yeah, I know what you mean.
When it comes to recovery, the choice, best argument for the choice theory is like, say an alcoholic walks in the room and I can see he's sweaty and shaky and he's in bad need of a drink. And I say, here, bud, let me pour you 3 fingers of this Jack Daniels here, right? Oh, it's free of charge. So he comes over and he goes to grab him. I go, oh, but wait a minute. If you take that drink, I'm going to stab you in the neck with this pen. The guy thinks twice about it and makes a choice not to drink and walks out of the room, right?
Right.
He made a choice not to drink.
Right.
With the proper amount of
what's the word? I don't know the word for that, but I know what
motivation.
You mean. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a good argument, right?
Yeah.
With, you know, if you face prison time or something like that, you know, that might deter you from doing a drug, right? But the thing is, it's wrong. The guy didn't make a choice not to take the drink. The guy made a choice not to get stabbed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And he probably left the room and went someplace else and found his life.
Right.
All right.
Yeah,
that's where that one goes wrong.
Okay.
But the disease model of addiction is if you do a certain addictive substance like heroin, meth, alcohol, enough times, you become addicted to that substance. You know, some drugs are physically addictive, like opiates. We're seeing the worst opiate epidemic. Oh, this is the worst epidemic that's faced us.
Is this still
worse
going?
Than crack? Oh yeah.
Oh, it's been going for like 10 years now.
Last week was the first week of 2022 that I didn't hear of somebody personally dying of a fentanyl overdose.
Wow, interesting.
But this week I heard it too. So
just this year alone, what is it? 2022 March.
2022.
How many have you heard of? Like, is it more than off of 2 hands?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, at least a person every week this year.
That's nuts.
You know, and that's personal from clients telling me or me hearing about it.
Right.
You know, we read it in the news every day.
So is it opiates or is it opiate epidemic or the fentanyl pandemic?
Well,
or both? Because they go
fentanyl is an opiate. It's a very, very strong opiate.
right.
It's works great in the hospitals and stuff like that, but it's very strong. And the people that are mixing it into drugs like heroin to make it stronger, and cocaine to keep people more addicted, and methamphetamine, we're finding it. And we got people that come in for treatment that are just doing meth, yet we dip a fentanyl stick inside their urine sample, and it tests positive for fentanyl.
Oh,
So we're seeing fentanyl in everything nowadays.
That's crazy. That's insane. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it's an epidemic, definitely. So we'll talk about that at later podcast.
Yeah. Absolutely.
My observations, but from the original theory, I mean the disease theory is this. Okay, say if you use heroin or an opiate, like heroin is just morphine, derivative of morphine, comes from the poppy.
Right.
If you use it for 21 days, your body will physically crave the drug, and you can go into withdrawal from not having it. Right. And does that not make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Using it changes your brain chemistry.
Same thing.
You're going to crave it, right?
Same thing with anything.
Right. But the thing is, there's a lot of people that are receiving morphine right now, diamorphine. There's hundreds of thousands of people in hospitals at this very moment that are receiving loads of diamorphine. So technically, some of them, if not all of them, should be addicts under that theory, right? Should become addicted to the substance, should crave the substance. But it simply doesn't happen. It happens sometimes, yes, but not all the time.
Right.
Like say you're last year I had a surgery on my stomach, and they gave me loads of diamorphine, because I was in severe pain. They even gave me Vicodin, the 30-day supply that I took under the supervision of my wife for 30 days. I should have been addicted, but I didn't.
Right.
Now the reason I didn't become addicted is because I had a healthy lifestyle and healthy bonds around me, So there are loads of people receive. Your grandma didn't become an addict from a hip replacement surgery, right?
She had a hip replacement?
Well, not your grandma, somebody's grandma.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, okay.
So like they studied this. They studied this, and it just doesn't happen for some reason, right? Usually the people that get addicted are using it socially, and they're usually using it because they want to change the way they feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not happy. They don't have nothing healthy to bond to. So there was, back in the 50s, there was an experiment where two scientists took a rat and put a rat in a cage, right? And inside that cage was a water bottle filled with morphine in it. And they did experiments with cocaine too, but morphine in it, and one that had food. When they put the rat in the cage, the rat went for the drugged water and kept on
over food, picking
over the food.
Yeah,
kept going for the drugged water, right? And the rat became addicted. Eventually, it used it compulsively, and eventually it died. That's a perfect micro example of absolutely right.
Yeah,
I mean, and rats are just like people.
Yeah, that's why they experiment.
Not just our brains are the same. I mean, ours are much larger, but we have the same reward system that all mammals and all animals have. You know? So they did that experiment, and they recreated it, and it happened consistently. These rats became addicted and kept using it until they overdosed. Right. So in the 1970s, there was a psychologist. Back to rats. Rats are just like humans behaviorally. They recognize family. they recognize parents, they recognize brothers and sisters, you know,
Right.
they live happily, they play together, you know, and they have families just like human beings do.
Mhm.
I mean, they would probably recognize grandparents, but the rat doesn't live long enough,
Yeah,
long
yeah.
enough to meet their
Their
grandchildren, right?
lifespan, yeah.
Yeah. So they're really ideal for some experiments on humans.
Mhm.
So there was a doctor in the 1970s called Bruce Alexander. He was a psychologist, right?
Right.
And he noticed something strange about this experiment, you know?
About the rat experiment?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He noticed some inconsistencies. He noticed that they're taking the rat out of his happy home with
I was
his
about to
family
say
and
that,
everything
yeah, yeah.
and putting him in a cage,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So the rat had nothing better to do than to do that heroin until he died.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
he had nothing to
He's
bond to,
depressed,
yeah.
he's caged, he was disconnected from his
From his,
family and,
yeah,
and
yeah.
his old life, right?
Right.
So he designed an experiment called Rat Park,
Mhm.
which is basically just heaven for rats. You know,
Right.
he put whole rat families in there, and the experiment was repeated too. They rented out some waterfront warehouses down in Baltimore or someplace back east that were
Mhm.
full of rats, and he tried the same thing, right? So he built Rat Park where the rats could be with their families. There was toys for them to play with.
Cheese?
Yeah, there was a with their friends.
Mhm.
There was the drugged water. There was the regular food, and they can play together and have loads of sex, which rats like to do.
Mhm.
Basically, is heaven for rats, right?
Right.
And something interesting happened. The rats hardly ever touched the drugged water.
Mhm.
None of them used it compulsively. None of them overdosed, and none of them became addicted.
Right.
So, you know, it wasn't really the drug, it was the cage.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
was the disconnection, you know, but that could just be rats, right?
Yeah.
In the 1960s and early 70s, soon after that, we had another experiment called the Vietnam War.
I like that you named it as an experiment. That's
Yeah.
the good way to put it.
During the Vietnam War, we took these young men in the prime of their life away from their lives, their happy families, you know, everything they knew, their security, moved them 10,000 miles away in a dangerous environment where you could be killed, forced to be killed, forced to kill, killed, maimed. And over 20% of the GIs were using heroin, a lot of it. They were in a perfect place for it, right?
You remember the movie Tropic Thunder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a golden triangle.
Yeah.
So if you're in an environment like that, heroin's a great way to spend your time.
Also a good way to
Yeah, it
escape.
disconnects you from what's going on,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
it disconnect them from what's going on around them, right? So we were braced here. People were panicked back here. They thought that the streets are going to be filled with hundreds of thousands of junkies come back from Vietnam. But it simply didn't happen. Right. Studies followed these GIs home, and after, maybe they had minor withdrawal and stuff like that. But when they went back home, not very many of them became junkies. Mainly the ones that did were the ones that had nothing to come back to.
They had no support system when they came back.
Yeah. Yeah. They when they returned them back to their families, it just didn't happen. If you look at the old theory of addiction, that doesn't make sense. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you look at Bruce Alexander's disconnection theory or attachment theory, it makes perfect sense.
Right.
You know?
I see what you mean now by the traditional theory, and yeah. Right. Yeah, the first time you told me that, I never heard of it, but yeah, no, that's very interesting.
And they're both right.
Right. Yeah.
They're both right. You know, if you have become addicted to a substance, but like in my practice, what I see and it's a chicken and the egg thing. Did the disconnection come first, or did the addiction?
Right.
Or did the addiction come first? Either way, it leads to disconnection. When somebody's addicted, they can't possibly bond to healthy people and share what they're doing, so
Right.
they tend to isolate.
Super interesting. Yeah.
Again, it's human nature.
Right.
To bond to something. If you don't have healthy environment around you, healthy activities, you'll bond to something in your environment.
Right.
It could be cocaine. It could be pornography. It could be endlessly checking your cell phone.
Yeah.
It could be online gaming. It could be gambling. It could be anything to escape and relieve the stress and the loneliness.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like I said before, addiction is simply disconnection. Once you become addicted and you disconnect from everybody, or you're disconnected first, leads to addiction.
Right. No, this is all super interesting. It's all can't wait to put this out there so people can hear this.
Right. So, before, we need to look at the way we treat addiction separately. How do we treat addicts nowadays? We lock them up in prisons, which are literally cages, just like the rats in. And believe me, from my own experience, there's plenty of drugs in there too. It's a great way to spend your time when you're in prison.
I've heard. Yeah.
It's just like Vietnam. It's a high stress environment. You could get stabbed at any moment.
Right.
And then when they get out, we cut them off from jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vital resources that they may need.
Some families don't want anything to do with them absolutely.
Right. We force them to change and recover without any treatment, without any skill, teaching them any skills, and treat them like scum when they don't recover, when they fall and slip. So
crazy.
Yeah, we're going about the wrong way. So right now, we're looking at recovery from addiction as individual recovery, person to person to person. But what we need to do is look at social recovery, look at the bigger picture, because addiction is just disconnection equals disconnection. And the opposite addiction is not abstinence, it's connection. If you can connect with things healthy. So in my practice, when people come to me and sure, they're addicted, hopelessly, man, they're physically addicted. We do medical detox. We have medicines that help them through it, right?
Right.
We give them some tools to help them from relapsing, right? Because they're whatever reason they're addicted, they are addicted, right? We give them the tools they need. They're going to get sober just being there, right?
Right.
But I like to focus on what happens next when you leave recovery.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's where it really starts. Yeah.
Giving them resources, all the resources they need, all the tools they need to survive. We do family therapy and stuff like that. That's huge, because a lot of times an addict comes to treatment and they get out of treatment. The family doesn't know what they're going through. They're not addicts. They can't possibly understand addiction, and the addict doesn't know what they're thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
That wall goes back up and they become disconnected again.
Right.
So we have that family therapy where everyone meets together and like the addict knows what the family's thinking. And I've been in that seat before. It's a hot seat to be in, but it's necessary. And the family, we educate the family on how they can help, when not to butt in, and what to look for. And like it opens the lines of communication, forms healthier bonds.
Right.
So the tools to keep them from relapsing are important, cessating the drug and, building up their esteem. That's what we do in treatment. But the main thing, addressing the behaviors, that they had before or after their addiction, right?
Right.
But the main thing is is to connect them with healthy people, try to repair the family, and get them in a social environment where they're not isolated. When you're isolated, you're going to bond with something, so the more activity you have, healthy activity you have, the better your chances are of staying sober.
It's super interesting, all that stuff. The few things that popped in my head throughout this entire thing was, well, one is society. This is probably another thing that, like, I can only imagine. Well, this affects everybody, but society doesn't, how do I say, you can't make like the wrong decision. Like, you always got to be at your best. Everybody, like, you make a wrong decision, like, it's not okay for you to learn from your mistake, and
Right.
yeah, that, and then I don't want to name the name of the group, but this you may know what I'm talking about, but these people will actually want to break up the so-called nuclear family.
Yeah. One of the things that I teach, and one of the group topics I teach, are family relationships, right? And I teach what the qualities of a healthy family are. It doesn't matter what kind of family you're in. There's almost as many family types as there are gender identifications nowadays.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter what type of family you're in; they can be built up, because, like, we were seeing it. If the person can't go to their family for love, support, understanding, they're going to go outside of the family. If you don't teach your kids when they're little, instill those values in them, then this will. You're not going to like what this has to teach them.
And here's a good.
It's not all good.
I don't remember where I saw. I don't know if it's a quote, but like, if you don't program yourself, like something like your TV or your phone or something else basically will.
Yeah, and being a parent and a grandparent, of course, you put these values in your kids, and just like me, I got some good values instilled when I was a kid. But when I became a young adult, I went out and did my own thing anyways. But if you instill those values in there, they're still in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to run into situations in life to where, like, oh, so that's what that old bastard was talking about.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because even if it did, like, I've had similar situations. I can't think of any right now, but even if well, yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that, because it's like, is it later in life you kind of discover, I don't know, this is, I mean, I'm only 29, but I mean, or I don't know if I've just matured faster than other people, because I know people that are my age.
You've always been a higher thinker.
So some people my age are like, basically, some people my age are pretty much the people that we're, like, talking about in this podcast. And the point I'm trying to say is, I know exactly what you mean by instilling those, like, those values into when they're young, because absolutely,
Right.
Once it's programmed into them,
a lot of people nowadays are just so distracted by what's going on. They can tell you exactly who the unmasked singer was, but they can't tell you what's going on in Europe right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can't. Yeah, they're more concerned with these other things than the bigger picture.
And this probably plays a role into, like, there's and we talked about family and connecting with people and all that stuff, but there's so many of these distractions to keep everybody disconnected. I mean, you can't go down the street without seeing a billboard of a half-naked chick And I mean, just seeing that alone awakens so many, I don't want to call them negative thoughts in a person's mind, but it would,
Natural human thoughts.
yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
That's
But
our human nature
but
too.
what it would lead, what it would lead us to, what will lead us to do, male
Right.
or female, and not just that. We have TV
Right.
shows showing.
And they're just using that to sell you something. Sex sells.
Oh yeah, no,
You
absolutely,
know?
yeah, absolutely. But
Right.
the point I'm just trying to say is there's so many things, especially in this time. I don't know what it was like in 1800s. I imagine people were much more connected. Like you said, even when I was a kid,
Right.
I actually knew our neighbor's name.
Right.
But
Well,
now,
they knew their neighbors' names that were like miles apart because that's all they really had. But like,
yeah.
but they weren't without their problems either. So
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, there's a lot of great stuff nowadays that is available, but it's just not getting people to see the value in it. You know, when there's all this other stuff going on.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
the family is weakening. There's an attack on the family. Like I said, doesn't matter what family type, single parent, blended family, nuclear family, same sex family, surrogate family, extended family. Doesn't matter what kind of family it is. It's important, you know, because when the family breaks down, the community breaks down. When the community breaks down, society breaks down. When society breaks down, civilization breaks down.
You know, I noticed it's not even just people who are so-called addicts. People who kind of just lost in their lives. I've come across people who like, I guess the way I put it is need to find their tribe, or that's really what they're looking for is their tribe. Some people just lost, so they end up going down these.
A lot of culture is lost when they come to the United States. I mean, what culture do we have here other than Kentucky Fried Chicken and Amazon?
Yeah, what's that?
And Netflix. You know, we don't really, you know, when we lose our touch with our culture, we lose touch with who we are, and then we're easily programmed by what's going on around us. So it's like really important that if you guys could learn how to speak Kahuya, it'd be huge.
Oh yeah, I contacted that guy. He didn't message me. He read my message and didn't message me back.
It's like family traditions and stuff like that are touchstones to your past and give you identity of who you are.
Right.
I have lots of those, you know, and I would have yet to pass them down, traditions and stuff like that. But they seem kind of silly nowadays, but like they're important.
Oh yeah, they seem silly because it's not like the mainstream to do anything that I don't know the quote for it, but people anything that people don't understand, they automatically judge, basically.
Right. Or this past stuff and history and stuff like that's not important to people anymore because it's got nothing to do with what Cardi B is doing on her latest video. You know, that's what I'm saying. It's a substitution of pop culture for real culture. So if you want to say culture in America, it's basically a pop culture.
That's what I was gonna say is like, so I was just saying, like, I guess you want to call it American culture,
right?
It's like yeah, KFC and Amazon. So like, what was our culture like back in the 50s?
Our
culture then?
Yeah, we had an American culture, but things started changing then. We started trading like the old way of doing things for convenience.
Yeah,
you know,
technology,
TV dinners.
Right.
Yeah, things really started changing then. But like, I mean, their family tradition's important, you know. It's kind of funny though. I saw how the Viking series was very popular, and in the United States, believe it or not, Minnesota has the highest concentration of Scandinavian population, but California has the second highest.
Really?
You know, and I see a lot of people reconnecting with their culture.
I do too.
Giving them identity.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Good because there's good values, you know. It's really easy for Hispanic people to connect with their cultures. But, you know, too easy. They're going astray too. If you speak Spanish, teach it to your kids. Teach it to your grandkids. If you speak Swedish, teach it to your kids. Speak it to your grandkids.
It's actually funny. Yesterday I watched a movie called Stalingrad. The whole thing was in German, but the German was actually pretty easy to understand, surprisingly. And well, the point I wanted.
English is a German language.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
The Old English is the Saxon language, and that is just like, the Western German language. You can pick up a German newspaper and pretty much understand what they're, well, maybe not a German one.
Yeah,
you can pick up a Dutch newspaper. If you get past all the vowels that they have, you can pretty much understand what's going on.
Right.
Because the Saxon language is English language. You hear Old English speaking, it sounds like you're speaking Dutch.
Interesting. But the point
Swedish is close too.
I've only heard Swedish a few times. The point I was going to say, because I've never learned Spanish, I never really wanted to. I'm surrounded by it constantly. But for some reason, the reason why I never wanted to learn Spanish is because I've always connected with the countries in Europe. That's why I took German. That's why I started learning Russian.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
history fascinates me, and I mean, history is vital.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not so important anymore to anybody, I mean, go on. Like, I mean, I don't want to plug anybody else's blogs or anything like that, but go to Mark Dice's Man on the Street videos, where he goes down to San Diego State and asks people who lives at 1700 East Pennsylvania Avenue. They don't know. Then they ask them, well, who lives in a pineapple under the sea? And they say, oh, SpongeBob SquarePants. So how come you know where SpongeBob lives, but you don't know where your own president is?
A good example of that is there was a person who went around I think it was a college campus too. Always college campuses where you get, the brightest people, of course, went around asking like if they like Kamala Harris, and then they asked them to name one thing that she's done as vice president. Really in general to like improve American standard of life, and can't name a single thing. They just know that she's the first female vice president.
I wouldn't judge them harshly because I can't name a single thing she done.
Exactly.
But that's my observation. I don't know what goes on up there on Capitol Hill, and like I'll probably never know, but history is important. If you don't remember history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Absolutely.
Hitler could have been stopped in Poland. Putin needs to be stopped in the Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do another podcast about that, actually.
Yeah, that's a total other subject.
Yeah, that's a whole
other thing. Yeah, I mean, all this comes around back to human nature again. We're human beings for a long time. We still have the same basic needs. If we don't remember our history, we're doomed to repeat it.
I absolutely 100% agree. So before we go, is there anything else you wanted to mention? Anything we've talked about?
I just want to say that, like, we had a third experiment that supports the rat part theory, disconnection theory, and that was COVID-19.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
COVID-19 was basically the same thing. It was like disconnection on a mass scale. And like, the reason I say that it resembles the same thing is because during COVID-19, we're put in lockdown. We lived under fear and high stress, right? And a lot of people in my practice, I seen bonded with what was closest to them. I mean, you couldn't get toilet paper, but you can have alcohol delivered to your door.
And you couldn't
marijuana delivered to your door.
You couldn't go to the gym, but McDonald's was still open.
Right. Absolutely.
You couldn't get fresh air. I know what you mean.
Right. And it was big disconnection. It was disconnection on a mass scale. So when 2020 rolled around, by July 2020, every single bed in both of our facilities was filled with people treated for alcoholism and alcohol abuse, right?
Yeah.
Before in 2019, I'd say it was 70 to 80% opiates and maybe 20 or 30% alcohol. But by the time COVID by summer 2020, every single bed in the facility was filled with somebody being treated for alcohol, right?
Right.
And they're all telling me the same story. Yeah, I drank, before COVID, but I had my job and I had my busy life, my regular life, keeping it in check. And when COVID hit, they were throwing money at me and had nowhere to be. And my drinking became daily and then all day long and then compulsively. And then I stopped eating and I had people come into the facility that couldn't even walk, even, a couple of weeks after they were sober because they stopped eating.
Why? Because they're still
coming
down
yeah, they're coming. Well, they're just drinking all the time, and they're just. It's like it was way out of proportion. So that was a third. That was a third thing. That goes back to disconnection theory. These people are in a high stress environment, nothing to do but sit home and drink, and it set their addiction in motion.
I can only imagine. Oh, we're gonna have to do another podcast about that. I'm gonna write it down actually.
Right. So,
yeah, anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, just reach out to your family members, spend some time with them. There's no such thing as quality time and quantity time. Time together is just that just that time together. It's all quality.
Actually, that's a good way to put it. I like that. Yeah. Well, anyways, we're gonna come back with another podcast at some point. I don't know. We'll be back at some point, and we'll let you know what the next subject is gonna be. So for now, we're gonna pause this, and we'll see you guys later.